Hi traders, welcome to this live SWAT 2.0 webinar. Thank you so much for joining. Happy that you're here on this 8th of May, Friday. We're going to take a look at the new SWAT method. What is new? What remained the same? Because of course we had SWAT already for 3 years before that, the first version. A lot of things have changed, but some things have also stayed the same. So all of that will be explained. First of all, I want to save you time and explain in as short as possible manner for who SWAT is really interesting, I think, and for whom I think SWAT is probably not interesting, because every trader is going to have a different view, and you got to find something that suits your style, suits your way of trading. And SWAT is not going to be for everyone. I've fully acknowledged that from the beginning. So I think, for instance, if you are here are the traders that I think would appreciate and benefit from SWAT 2.0. First of all, certainly Elliott wave traders and anyone who likes wave patterns, because SWAT simplifies that into easier trading decisions. If you only trade based on waves, it's quite tough. You need a lot of practice. SWAT definitely simplifies that. So definitely for you, in my view. Second, traders that like Fibonacci, fractals, and moving averages, because this SWAT is more reliant on these types of indicators. So if you like that kind of material, you will like or love SWAT a lot, okay? If you like chart patterns and price patterns and understanding, you like to look at price swings and such, then you will like probably SWAT as well, all right? Because SWAT also simplifies the way of looking at those patterns. It's not only about waves, it's about pattern trading in general. So if you like purely price action and you're not that much into indicators, no, then I don't think it's for you, because SWAT does use a reasonable amount of indicators, first of all. So it's a mixture of, we do look at price, but we also use a decent amount of price patterns and price indicators. So we don't only use price action, certainly not, okay? So definitely not for you. If you like very simple trading, pin bars at support or resistance, or only looking at support or resistance, then I don't think it's for you either. Very, very honest here. Personally, I think it's a medium kind of complexity, but it depends on what perspective you're coming from, right? So if you're used to very simple trading, this will look complex. If you're looking at 5 variants of Elliott wave theory, this might seem simple. So, it depends on all kind of perspectives and stuff. I guess I see it in the middle. What I do try with different types of SWAT strategies is that there are some simple things out there and some more difficult, because it's not just one method. There's a kind of umbrella of things in it. And SWAT basic, I think in a certain way, is quite to the point. We're looking for, I'll show you, red and blue candles in the right circumstances. That's not too difficult in my view. So it depends on what type of trading you're looking at, because SWAT it's not just one thing. It's quite, an umbrella of things. I'm going to discuss all of that. I just wanted to, throw that out there to save some of you some time. Let's take a look now in more detail. So if you don't know, SWAT, of course, stands for Simple Wave Analysis and Trading. It's more than just Elliott waves, though. I really think it's for both Elliott wavers and non-Elliott wavers, but it depends on what type of trader you are. I just explained the types that I think would appreciate this. So in SWAT 2.0, you'll have 2 sections. You got an educational course and a part that's focused on SWAT trading itself. So that's one of the differences. I think that SWAT 1.0 was more of an educational course. I did try with SWAT 2.0 to also focus on the trading section or part. So we got 2 parts there that explain both. You don't have to do it's up to you. It's a free world. It's a free course, so you can choose what you look at. If you don't need the education as much because you think you're more advanced, you can skip some parts. Obviously, if you're a beginner and you would love to learn all these things, then it is available for you there in this course. So here's more comparison. So we expanded it drastically with SWAT 1.0. There was, for instance, only a few videos, and we had a lot of webinars adding on that, but those webinars were very lengthy. So, I don't think new members were able to watch those webinars so well. So we have videos that it seems like a lot of hours, but it's really to the core. I'm not wasting time there. I'm not blabbing around. There's really 22 hours of actual lessons in that. Okay, 74 lessons, 3 approaches, 10 strategies, 4 different entry options. And yes, I now see your question, Theo. There are rules-based strategies indeed included, and the winning ratio of those could be anywhere around, if I remember correctly, about 60%. With SWAT, I would not count on anything that is higher than 75. It is not, because it's with a trend. It's looking at breakouts. It's also aiming for a decent reward to risk ratio. So I wouldn't count on anything above 75 for sure. I think you should more expect around 60, depending on how you trade it. SWAT is using, what I use it on, mostly on 4 hour nowadays. I did trade it in 1 hour in the past, not so long ago though. But I think, and also on 15-minute, but I think that you can really use it on, in my view, on all time frames, because the market is fractal of nature. So the principles, I think, are universally applicable to not only the Forex, but other markets and also other time frames. I don't really see any limitation in that. In fact, I am working now on a SWAT EA. I have been already for a while, but now that I have this course finished, now that I have the SWAT guide finished as well, by the way, I have time to move on to the next project, and that is continuing with that EA. And that EA is focused on the 5-minute world for a lot of setups, basically. All right. So anyhow, but that's a separate story. I'm not finished with that yet. So there's a lot of new things in SWAT 2.0, as you can see with this comparison here. Now, we kept SWAT basic with the SWAT candles, and that is the simplest way. As you can see on the left, you see blue and red candles, right? So the blue candles represent potential long entries, red candle potential short entries, but we don't take all of them. With certainly the basic strategy, it's more meant for beginners, simple as possible, but also we want to be smart with, smart traders here. So we're trading only with the trend in this case. So the moving averages have to be aligned for a trend. And in this case, as you can see, the 21 EMA is above the 144 EMA. That's an uptrend. So we're only taking blue candles, no gray or red. And as you can see, the 3 green boxes there indicating 3 potential setups. And 2 working well, and 1, I'm not sure if that would have survived with the stop loss, maybe a loss. If it would have been, if it didn't hit the stop loss, it still would have turned out to be a winning trade. Not sure about that middle one. I can't see it too well. But obviously, nothing is, this is trading, and obviously there's going to be losses and wins and losing streaks and winning streaks. This is something that every trader has to realize, that you have that with automated trading and manual trading, and we can't avoid that. That's part of the game. Very important to digest that and be aware of that and prepare for that. But you can see that some of these setups work nice, work nicely. And the idea of that basic is to enter with the trend at a smart spot where the odds are on our side, basically. So that's there still. But what we added was SWAT Classic, with a little bit more rules and a little bit more indicators to increase the winning percentage. Because SWAT Basic, I think, I think it's a little bit lower, probably should count on maybe, depending on the trade management, more between 40 and 50%. With SWAT Classic, we're upping that up into the 60 area, okay, because we're using a little bit more filters to increase the winning percentage. SWAT Pro basically is not using those SWAT candles, but as the word suggests, it's more for advanced traders, and it has different entry options, and it's a little bit more flexible with the trend, so you kind of have more counter trend trades as well in that. It's a little bit more complex. Maybe don't get scared. Not all the indicators are necessarily needed in that, but it's actually not that complex. But we use more advanced techniques. We don't use the simplified, the simple kind of SWAT candles. So there are more entry options, and there are more ways of trading up and down, against the trend, with the trend, and that's the main difference. That has been added as well. So with SWAT 2.0, we are adding SWAT Classic, SWAT Pro, and SWAT MACD besides SWAT Basic. Those are rules-based strategies. We continue with wave strategies. I think a little bit more clearly defined what those wave strategies are. And we also explain how a trader could trade with the SWAT material in a discretionary way. Some of you might be elite wave traders that don't necessarily want rules-based strategies, but want ways to trade waves or trade your wave analysis in a discretionary way. So that's there for you. Others are not wave traders and basically maybe want to use the moving averages, Fibs, and Fractals to their advantage. Then I would say the rules-based strategies is more for you. So we got these three types of approaches. These indicators, the indicators, great question, is they are for MetaTrader 4, MT4. But if you don't have MT4, then I think a lot of the logic can be applied to other charts. A lot of these logics are based on Fibs and moving averages and fractals, which I think you could replicate on different charts in some way, but not fully, of course, because there are some proprietary indicators that are only for MT4. But I wouldn't say that if you don't have MT4, it's definitely not for you, because I think there's a lot of things to learn from it, and you can still apply some things that are based on moving averages easily on other platforms as well. Sorry, Charles. I am. Does anyone? I didn't check the sound. Is it? I hope it's not my side that's creating the problem with the sound. Do you hear me properly? I didn't do a sound check actually. Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you for your confirmation. So, Charles, yeah, recording will be available. I'll write that. What else? Did any other questions? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, James. Does SWAT setups focus on wave 1 and 3, motive wave, and zigzag corrective phases? Yeah, the SWAT. So wave 1 and 3 is the wave strategies focus on those waves. The rules-based strategies, in a way, too, but they're a little bit more flexible. So it's basically based on moving averages, Fibs, and fractals. So yes, they're trading the waves, but indirectly. Let's see. So there are a lot of indicators. As I said, if you're a pure price action trader, this might not be for you, or I don't think it is for you. Now, not all indicators, don't get scared either. Not all indicators are used all the time. Some indicators are used for only few strategies. Some are used for discretionary analysis. Some are just like extras and don't have to be used at all. But they're available if you do want to use them. There are 10 templates so that you can easily add all of the indicators to the MT4 like I see it. so you can apply that quickly. There are 9 PDFs in the meantime. In fact, as was mentioned at the very beginning here in the chat, you get the SWAT guide or ebook as well, which is about 600 pages explaining everything in text format as well. 74 videos and 22 plus hours of recordings. So everything in kind of like 10 to 30-minute videos. I actually wanted to, my goal was to make them shorter, but well, that's the length that it turned out to be. Let's see, more questions. The Fibs. So good question about the Fibs. And there was a question about, I think, the bullseye indicator earlier on from James, actually. So for targeting, there are 2 ways of trading it. The Whiz tool is the standard way, and then Fibs. Now, there are 2 ways of fibbing. Manually, which I explain in the rules base. There is a strict manual, a simple way of manual, actually just trading, placing the Fibs on 2 candles, actually current and previous candles. So very simple. Difficult not, to miss that. Should be fine for everyone. But I also teach how to place Fibs on swings from a discretionary point of view. That's kind of part of the educational section, okay? And we use that Fib tool to identify the correct Whiz level for targeting. That's one approach. Second is with the bullseye indicator, but unfortunately it's not part of it's not standard part of the SWAT. That's the only indicator that's not part of SWAT because it was developed by Mislav and it's not part of SWAT. But I do explain that tool in the course because I openly indicate that, I'm using this tool, but it's not part. So it's the only kind of indicator that's not part of SWAT. Nothing I can do about that. But it's not a must to use either. But it's a great tool. It basically automates the Fibonacci process, puts it on the swing using the zigzag indicator, and plots the Fibonacci levels for up and down side targets. Blue for up, red for down. Great indicator, very fast, very efficient, very precise. Love it. That's why I recommend it, but it's not part of SWAT. It would have to be an extra. But it's not, it's a target tool, so it's something that Whiz also could do. That's up to you. So I explain manual Fibs and I explain rules-based Fibs plus Whiz, how to use that for targeting. Now, don't get scared by the win percentage because it's not that high, 46%. This is my own performance. I thought the win percentage would be higher. I was a bit surprised when I looked at the stats. Actually, these are trades that I sent to ECS Live when I restarted in June last year up to the end of last year. I was still trading with ECS Live. After that, due to personal circumstances, I was not able to as yet. But I got 46% wins. The total wins is that's the error. Was less trades actually. But my reward to risk ratio was 1.83. So that's my type of trading. I'm a little bit more aggressive in the targeting, but my win ratio is less. That was my performance below 300 pips and a 7% return on average per month. That said, if you're a little bit more conservative with the targeting, I think that certainly with SWAT Classic, that win percentage, as I said, should go up to about 60, but I don't think anyone will be able to pass 70 though. I don't know, maybe someone will surprise me, but I don't think so. Because keep in mind that this is the entries are rules based. The trade management is, there are rules, but it's a bit more discretionary. Okay, so what do you get? Wait, one more question, actually. This is, yeah, scalping is the only thing that I'm not that sure about. I think yes, but I think we could take a look at the live charts, and I'll show you a 5-minute chart, and you can decide maybe better from the chart. I mean, I think yes. That said, you got to be on guard. It's a quicker time frame. maybe adding pivot points could be good for that. And being aware of the news, of course, and all these things are very important. So I think it's okay for a kind of like scalping swing intraday style. For actually scalping, like scalping back and forth like this, I don't think it's that good for scalping. I think it's more for a, as I said, like kind of swing scalp, maybe a position trade for a few hours. I think I can see that working out well with the trend, trying to get that burst of momentum in a session. But scalping, like back and forth like that, I don't know. Then not the SWAT rules-based strategies, maybe the discretionary methods, but you need a little bit more, practice for that. Yeah, if you mean with the trend alignment, then it's okay. I think I'll show in a second. Yeah, then I think it's okay taking entries when the trend is aligned using the same principles. In fact, as the high temperatures but low temperatures, that's okay. If you don't mean like aggressive scalping back and forth, then that should be fine in my view. Way back, I also used it in 5 minutes, but that was quite a while back. So I'm going to look at the live charts in a second, but just before to save time and for people who are maybe need to push off. So yes, you have the option of extra ECS live, 1, 4 months, or 12 months, depends on what package you choose. So if you have 473 is with 1 month of ECS live added to that. You get the SWAT guide. Okay, that's not only with 4 months, it's for everyone actually. And also, if you can open, I have to add 2 conditions. If you can open an account with our partner broker, not everyone can. Some countries can't. So sorry for that, but that's nothing we can do about that. And the minimum deposit is 1,000 euros. But then you do get access to Mislav Nikolić's Ultima EA. Probably some of you have heard about that already, or maybe have joined already. But if you haven't, now it's not available as a profit share model. You can only rent it. But you would have access to the profit share model, which means that you don't have to pay anything upfront in fees or costs. So that's a nice advantage. There's some advantages here for if you join in May, if you like to start with SWAT in May. Few questions. I don't have a EA that manages the trade management. But there are trade management, other, indicator or EAs that do that in general. I guess I've never tried that. You could try that if you like, but I don't have anything that manages except a trail. Actually, I do have a trail stop loss on Fractals. I could add that. I forgot. Let me write that down. So that's the only thing that one could trail stop Fractals. I do have an expert advisor on that. I'll write that down. I'll add it. So what time frames? We talked about it. It's all time frames in my view. Maybe not 1 minute chart, or monthly is not so useful, but otherwise I think the principles are valid for everything. How intensive is SWAT? Well, medium, really depends on your perspective. You don't need to go through all 22 hours though. Really, you can choose what is suitable for you. And it's also not locked. The whole course is open. All parts are open to whatever you want, because I don't know what you want to focus on. I don't know your experience level. I didn't force anyone to go through anything. You can choose. We talked about 3 already. Mostly applicable to everything except scalping in the, like a couple of trades an hour point of view. That not. How much experience do I need? I think it's applicable for everyone as long as you either like waves, patterns, price patterns, or indicators like moving averages and Fibs and Fractals. You do not need to learn any of the wave, but you are able to if you want. You cannot use these indicators and tools on other platforms, but you can replicate some. And instruments, I use it on Forex and CFDs, but I can imagine it working okay on cryptos, for instance, as well. But I don't know myself. You do not need to go through all 70 videos. You do not need to use all the SWOT indicators. And I will help with the SWOT material in live, with the live webinars. We have 2 live webinars per week. And the goal with SWOT is to simplify the entry methods that in a way that gives me and traders confidence with the entries. So it might not be the simplest way ever, but to me, it definitely makes it simpler to find entries. It gives me also the confidence to take those trades. All right. So yes, let's take a look at the charts now, actually, James, so you can see that a bit better maybe. All right. Yeah, we have big news coming right now, indeed. Let's see how price responds. So this is actually classic. Let me show you basic so you don't get maybe too overwhelmed. Let's see, basic. So Whiz is not added. Normally I do add Whiz for the targeting, but let's ignore that for a second. Okay. All right. Now, let me just go back to the beginning of this year, for instance, and walk you through that. This is the 4-hour chart, but we can take a look at an hourly chart after that, or even we'll take a look at all time frames then. Okay. All right. So basically, we're looking for new blue candles with the trend. So sometimes, of course, you get with basic, you get with the trend failures like this here. Okay. And those are setups that classic typically avoids because it's an ABC correction and we're trading with the trend, but it's kind of a reversal situation. So classic avoids trading here. This would be a loss, but this would be no setup because it's in a range. But here, for instance, if we scroll a little bit further, we have a with the trend setup that went very nicely. Here, red candle, everything aligned with the moving average, and you have a very good push lower, for instance. Okay. Now with SWAT basic, you would not trade against the trend. Here or here would be avoided on the 4-hour chart, but you could trade here already with the SWAT arrow. And basically the trend aligned already to the upside because the 21 is above the 144 and price is above the 21. So that is the definition of the trend, and that will be explained. So this one works out nicely. Then we go more to the right. All right, so this red candle we would skip. These blue candles here too because we didn't have a break of the 21 EMA. All of that is explained. This one we would skip is counter trend trade. Now more experienced traders, if you think that the reversal might work out, it's possible to trade actually the candles that are blue and red against the trend, but I don't recommend it for beginners. If you have more experience and you think there's reason for a reversal, then you could take this blue and you could take this red candle too and trade against the trend. And it's not something that I look at usually, right? I keep it simple, but more advanced traders could think about that. Then you have, anyhow, you have price moving lower. You have a new red candle here after price bouncing at the 143 May. It could be traded as a counter trend as well. With the trend setup basically not available here because price is kind of oscillating on this time frame. So this euro-dollar pair would have a bit of a problem in the trend atmosphere here until you get here because it was quite choppy. This is a trend setup with a trend, downtrend, and goes down 460 pips, plenty of space to grab some profit. These blue are skipped because it's a counter trend. This red is, again, with the trend setup here, and goes down for also some 140. You might wonder, here's also a new red candle, but it didn't break the 21 EMA, so that would not be valid as filtered out. So there you see some of the with the trend setups. These two are skipped because it's actually counter trend, although both worked out fine. In fact, most of these blue and red candles worked out fine, as you can see, even if they were with or counter trend, as long as they break the 21 EMA. In fact, all of these worked out well. Okay, so if you are a bit more aggressive as a trader, you can see that these worked out fine. Maybe one of the reasons was because there was quite big price movement. I don't know, but these all of these counter trend and with the trend worked out well. Let's take a look at the hourly chart again with basic. I'll add Whiz this time. And then we'll take a look at the 15, and then we'll take a look at the 5-minute chart and daily. All right. So this is with the trend setup here, here too. All of these are all entry options. In fact, there are a couple of them. I wouldn't take all of them here necessarily, but there's plenty of space, blue candles for this move up. So that's an example of with the trend. In this case, this downside is with the trend, but we didn't have a new red candle, so we wouldn't have any setup there on this time frame. But maybe on the 50-minute chart, it would have been tradable. Probably yes, for some setup there. All right, let's take a look at this downside. Okay, so we had basically a new setup here and here and here. Now, the first setup actually should be okay, I think. Okay, if you use a 10-pip buffer above this fractal, this setup should be okay and should survive the drawdown. The other setups as well, as price respects the 144 EMA. Granted, you would have to wait 2.5 days before the trade develops our way, but yeah, sometimes patience is needed. This, of course, setup sees price, go our direction the quickest to the downside, and that's why adding Whiz is useful, because we also see that if you're getting too close to a particular target, in this case, you're close to 107.50, it would not be good and wise to take this setup, for instance, because of the support level coming close. So you would want to filter that out. So those are a couple of good wins to the downside there as well. Here are two blue candles to the upside, or one blue candle at least. Let's be more conservative. After hitting the 144 EMA. Here we have a couple of red candles to the downside. Personally, I mean, those probably, some traders could take those or one of them. If there's a cluster like that, I wouldn't take all of them. Personally, I would skip it because of the large momentum to the upside, but that's a discretionary call. So some might have a loss there. Here, I think there's a good trade, a good red candle closing below the 20 EMA with a good downside. Here, there could be a loss, but yeah, depending if on the Whiz levels where they are. Let me add the Whiz levels. So we can have a bit more information. Whiz is very important for understanding the zones and if you still want to trade with the trend. So that is really a crucial aspect that explains whether we still want to trade in that zone or not. Okay, so that's very important still, and I don't have that here, so I'm a bit. I have it. The Whiz 2 actually does go in the past, but I don't have it installed on this template. 1 second, let me add it. But anyhow, you see here a couple of examples. I think you get the point. Red candles aligned to the downside and a nice trend move. Here, red candles, but trend overextended. In that case, hopefully, you're able to avoid those, but you'll never be able to avoid necessarily everything or every loss, of course. Let me add, here you have the Whiz, but let me add the history quickly. Because this Whiz 2 has history, and it doesn't repaint. Nothing repaints, actually. The only thing that changes is the SWAT fractal, and it only changes based on time patterns. So because if 6 candles do not break for a higher high, based on that time pattern, the color changes. So it's a clear rule that everyone can predict beforehand already. Okay, that's the only thing. Otherwise, nothing is changing. So let me give you an example maybe of some of the moves here. Let's take a look. All right. So yeah, basically with 7, probably too close, for instance, in this case. Let me go back a little bit to the other examples we had. I think a little bit further here, for instance, Whiz 9. So you wouldn't want to take a red candle right in front of Whiz 9 after it bounced at Whiz 9. It's overextended. You wouldn't want to trade with the trend at that point. So that's a clear filter in that case. This one, very clear. The other one is 50-50, I guess, because there was still space to Whiz 7. So that's a little bit it's possible to take that. So I'm talking about right at this moment, I'm talking about this one. Do you see that, Henry? Oh, you don't see the Whiz levels? Oh, Whiz levels I think you do. There are dotted lines here. Maybe you don't see them? Those dotted lines? Yeah, those are the Whiz levels, actually. Those dotted lines. So sorry about that if that wasn't clear. So all these dotted lines. Yes. Okay, got it. I'll explain. So maybe Henry, maybe try restarting the browser. Okay, yeah. So the dotted lines are the Whiz levels. In the past, you don't see the numbers of the Whiz levels, but based on the coloring, it's a code. So basically, red is danger, is range. Orange is breakout. Green is ideal trending zone, really. Blue is still okay, and purple could be overextended in some cases. If you look at the current Whiz levels, they also add the numbers. So if you're looking at live current Whiz levels, you have those levels there. But when you look at back, the levels from the past, we don't have that. You don't have the numbers and the price levels. You just have the color codes. But you'll get used to it and you can see it quickly eventually. So that's an important factor for zoning. And bullseye indicator is also an important zoning tool as well, by the way. Yes, it's a combination of Fibs and Whiz to determine the best exit. That's my way. That's the one I explain. But if you want to add yourself, if you use another exiting tool like pivot points, I don't think there's anything against it. But obviously, I explained what I use for SWAT. And I also explained the bullseye indicator, although unfortunately it's not part of SWAT automatically. Let's take a look at the 50-minute chart. Yeah, it's basically 13 pips is valid for 4-hour chart, 1-hour chart, 50-minute chart, 5-minute chart, all of that. 13 pips as the first Whiz level is not useful for a daily chart. So then I would change it and start probably with 55. All right. There was, I think I missed a question. Camarilla Pro, no, that's not used. And that's part of Nanet's system, but I don't use that. but the ECS MACD is added. Let's see. Oh yeah, I forgot. I didn't address Matero's question about if it could be used for daily stock chart. My impression is yes, but I have never used it myself. I can look at the CFD maybe if that helps. I think that basically it's based on moving averages. So I think that it should work okay, is my impression on SWAT, on stocks daily as well. Maybe I have a stock actually. Do I? Maybe not. Doesn't look like I have, unfortunately. But I don't, unfortunately. But yeah, it's basically what it's looking for is combinations of trend, pullback, and continuation. Now, the Whiz tool is best used for Forex, but if you adjust the levels, it might work well on other instruments. But it's it's the current levels are adjusted for Forex. Let me say it this way. But if you tinker around, maybe with the levels, it could work on other instruments as well. So if you don't have Whiz, you can always do it automatically. The principle basically could be valid for everything, but you would have to adjust the levels for a particular instrument. But yeah, it's based on Fibs, Fractals, and moving averages. And if there's anything I think that is useful for all or most instruments, then I think it's moving averages. And also added wave in general, I think is maybe even more suitable for stock than Forex because of the pace that Forex has and also the higher leverage. But that's my estimate or guesstimate. In any case, we can scroll back a little bit. Obviously, if there's a nice trend, you get pretty good entries usually with the trend up. Some false kind of breakouts if there's a high counter trend volatility. So yeah, this one and this one didn't work out well, although it depends where you put the stop loss if it would be a loss. That said, I mean, there was a lot of momentum to the downside here, so I would expect a range in that case and wait for a break of the pattern first, here or here or here, before trading any blue candle. But if there's a trend, then of course that's extra benefits for this SWAT system, because there's a lot of ways to trade that trend. As you can see here, at the beginning, here scale-ins, here new setup, scale-ins, some scale-ins here. The trend is definitely the best kind of situation for SWAT, typically. And here we still pick up some nice trades to the upside. What you got to be careful of is if there's volatility to the opposite side, then the next blue candle like this and this are ones you typically want to skip. Let me take a look at, this is the 50-minute chart. It works, in my view, well on these lower time frames too, but you gotta keep in mind that, of course, with the targeting, you gotta feel the day, which means be aware of the time zones. So when is London ending? When is New York ending? Asian session, of course, Tokyo session might be slow. These kind of practical things you got to be aware of. But otherwise, I've done in my trading pretty well with the 50-minute chart as well, because the principles are the same and can be used. So for instance, here, let's take a look at the beginning of this trend. So we have a new trend, red candles for an entry to the downside. And depending on which entry you take, 30 pips there. This kind of entry you would want to skip because that's at the end of the Tokyo session. So you would want to wait for the London session or so to start. So this could be a loss if you take that. This one would be a win, although you would have to hold on a little bit longer. Next day, this is probably Tokyo session here. Next day, here in the beginning of London, again, a win down to Whiz 6 from Whiz 6. Yeah, 3, 4, 5 from Whiz 5 down to Whiz 6 for about 55 pips, as you can see. Okay. And these setups, well, they still actually pull in potential 33. But yeah, it becomes a little bit choppier. So that's a moment where you want to do risk, what you want to do trade management. And here, as you can see, it's the end of the London session. Price just doesn't continue with the trend, and you would want to anticipate, use some trade management based on that. Okay, because the trend doesn't get the follow through the London session. So higher chance that price will go into some kind of retracement. In this case, it's a very impulsive retracement. So yeah, it's if you use the certain logic from intraday, it can work well as well. As you can see here, nice entry here to Whiz 6 for 55 pips as well. The 5-minute chart is about the same as the 15. It's just it's a little bit more flexible, so you have a little bit more entries at quicker spots. So 1 second. So basically, pretty much the same principles. Maybe a little bit easier with entries, because sometimes 50-minute world can be a bit slow for intraday. But, you can keep an eye on both. Let's see. All right. So yeah, you need to. Let's see, I'm not sure what type of day this was, the 30th April. This is a range day, as you can see. So yeah, you want to be careful with this type of environment. That's why I would say take one setup at a time so that you don't get too many entries in a range type of environment like that. Here we have it with the trend setup that went for 30 pips. Maybe be a little bit more conservative with your targeting. As well, here you have it with the trend setups that went nicely. Here you have it with the trend setup that hit the second Whiz level. On a 5, we didn't have any new blue candle. We did have a blue arrow here going for 30. Let's see. Here, price didn't go our way. This is all Tokyo session. So I would personally not necessarily recommend trading with the trend at that point. Okay. So be careful of that. I mean, later on with the London session here, there is a red candle that there is some 12 pips, but then you get a strong candle to the opposite direction, and you would want to take that into consideration and maybe exit at break even, for instance. Okay. So let's see if we can find another example here. Let's see, breakout a little bit early. As I said, I'm not sure if I would take it that early, but this one did work out nicely. Let's see here. Here a London session, beginning London session trade that worked out nicely as well. Let's see the rest of the day. This is already end of New York, so I would be cautious not to trade at the end of New York personally with a trend like that. Let's check out this. Oh, this is all Tokyo session, so that's mostly going sideways. So yeah, very important to understand the session point. And yeah, just be careful with at least the first 5 hours of the trading day. So the first 5 hours of Tokyo session, typically it doesn't happen much. And the second part of the New York session specifically, but if with the trend setup hasn't materialized by the end of London. Also be careful. So these kind of things you got to definitely keep in mind. Otherwise, there should be some nice with the trend setups. Okay, so yeah, just keep in mind that it could be around 50-50 wins, losses, depending on how many filters you use and how good you are in avoiding certain losses. You might get it up to 60, depending also on how aggressive you are with the targeting. Okay, so if you go for smaller targets or if you go for larger targets. Could also be a lower win percentage at 40, but you're aiming for a higher reward to risk ratio of 2-to-1 on average, for instance. Like I got 1.83 with a 46% win percentage. So let's see. April was a bit choppier than January, February, March, but you get some nice trend setups here. This one is actually an Asian session. Here's a bit of a range. Here you get a good red push, as you can see. Let's see. Here we got a good red push again with the trend nicely falling to the downside. All right. Daily charts. I would not look at weekly and monthly. Now you can use SWAT Classic, Basic, and Pro. I'll show Pro in a second. Daily is going to be slower, way slower, in fact, than other time frames. But for instance, here you have a red candle breaking below the 20 MA with the 143 MA aligned for a good push down to Whiz 8. So that's one example. But it's going to be slower. I mean, we're looking for trend pullback continuation, so it's going to take more time. So we have maybe a setup here and here, for instance, but price going quite in a roller coaster ride here. So not having anything basically in this last part. So that would be slow. Let's take a look at the SWAT Pro. All right, don't get scared, a bit more indicators. But what we're looking for basically in a way is a little bit more flexible. So what we're looking for is the fractal and price versus the 21 EMA. And so we skip all of this actually here because of the rules. We do have a setup with the trend actually here. We got the fractal and price. We got the pullback and continuation. Hang on. Right here. And falling nicely down to the Fib target zone using Bullseye or Whiz 8 if you use Whiz. It's a great example of a pro trade, or the fractal break is possible, or the HMA with all of that is possible here. 3 different entry types, in fact, 3 different entry options in this part. So that's a great example on the daily. Now on 4-hour chart, let's take a look. All right, here we go. 4-hour, here we have, for instance, trend, pullback and continuation, the arrows and the breaks of the fractals, all of that indicating uptrend right up to the target here at Whiz 8 and the 161.8 target. But it's a little bit more flexible. So whereas this is counter trend with SWAT Basic and Classic, it's actually already, because this particular zone already can be traded to the downside actually. Here and here are actually 2 setups, potential setups to the downside. But probably the fractal break would be best because of the long-term moving average, to be honest. So that worked out nicely. And then we have another fractal break here. And well, we would not probably take any setups here. No, here, this could be a loss, actually, because we broke Whiz 8. So there would be a loss, but we had some nice wins here, 2 wins to the downside. Otherwise, let's see. Whiz 7 is too close. We would still use Whiz levels for bouncing zones. Current price action is a little bit choppy, but we would actually avoid a lot of the mess. And that's a good thing. We would avoid all of this, in fact. We would actually have a trade set up to the upside here on this candle. This is something I discussed live in the live webinar already. After a new uptrend, according to the Pro, pullback and continuation, and that worked out nicely up to the long-term moving average, in fact, for about 130 pips. And we would have an ongoing setup from this area. And we would probably move the trail stop loss above the current fractal. So it would be risking about a third still on a downside setup from this zone right here, in fact. So a third of the risk is still left, aiming for down in here in the previous bottom, the 100 fib with 6 in the previous bottom. So that is not an ideal environment, but as you can see, it did pretty well actually. But there are better environments for this type of trading. Specifically, of course, when you get big pushes like this that are smooth and everything is aligned. That's the 4-hour chart. The same is valid for 15, 1 hour, and 5. I think that if you want to use on intraday trading, it's good to combine 15 and 5. And keep in mind the rules for the sessions. And yeah, basically I've had nice results with those time frames too. But just, yeah, keep in mind of the sessions and the rules for the trend, trade management, and I think it should be fine. The 4-hour world is a little bit slower, but it's more robust than the hourly. That said, hourly can work out well too. One of the advantages is that it's a little bit more flexible and faster. You want to be maybe a little bit more, how do you say it, tougher on the filters and not trade it too close to Whiz levels or when it's overextended. Okay. Daily chart 2, I think, is okay, but slower. So you'll have to probably look at way more charts. We are starting actually to look at daily charts on the ECS live webinars. So on the ECS live webinars, we look at 4-hour and daily at this moment. And hopefully when I have more time, we can look at other time frames as well. And yeah, my SWAT EA is trying to trade the 5 in the world, in fact. So yeah, hopefully I'll succeed with that. All right, that's it, I guess. This is the rules-based strategies. I also have templates for those that want to use the wave strategies here. Waves, Pro, Classic, Basic. Discretionary is really up to you, how you want to tackle it, what you want to add, etc. This is for wave. This is the wave template as well. Okay. So yeah, it tries to simplify things, give me the confidence at the right time to enter. I know it sounds funny. You might think that why would I need maybe confidence for entries? You've been trading for years now. Why would you need that? But the funny thing is that that's one of my weaknesses, in fact, because I sometimes overanalyze and I'm waiting for let's say the perfect entry. So I sometimes am too shy and slow with actually entering trades. So SWAT actually helps me with the timing because of the new candles that are there, and also the confidence, because typically these SWAT candles do pretty well on their own. And if you add a few filters, that gets even better. So with the other indicators, it gives me a good kind of balance for trading, and it gives me the information that I want quickly. These, for instance, the diamonds, they all indicate certain information. It's not rocket science. For instance, these pink diamonds are a SWAT indicator that indicate and confirm momentum. What they do is actually count that there are 10 candles that have not hit the 21 EMA. So it's not something, strange, not something odd. It's a very it's an indicator that gives just information quickly. So one of the things that I explained is that 10 to 15 candles, that price doesn't hit the 20 EMA, indicates momentum. So this indicator just all, makes that quicker and more accessible, that information, without having to count that manually. That's the main thing. So that wraps up, I guess, SWAT. SWAT is all about simplifying things in a certain way with these indicators and tools and moving averages. All in all, it might therefore seem complex, but I think that ultimately it actually makes things simpler for some traders, certainly so. So yeah, if you're a wave trader, pattern trader, or if you like moving averages, Fibs, Fractals, I think SWAT would be good. There's, as I said, a lot of value, I think, with a lot of indicators, strategies, approaches, templates, videos, and of course, the SWAT guide. So yeah. Oh, this is the moment, I guess. You got an extra benefit with ECS Live and also the access to Ultimate EA from Mislav Nikolic, which did a really great job on that. It's partly based, or at least, some things are similar to SWAT with regard to the moving averages. So that might give you inspiration. If you like SWAT, then you might like Ultimate EA as well. I don't see any questions, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any follow-up questions, you can use our email, of course, or ask me if you have my email, and let me know. Otherwise, I hope to see you as a SWAT member, and if not, as maybe ECS Live or Ultimate EA or from Nenet Kamakni. And have a great weekend. Cheers. Bye-bye.